If you want a quick rundown of the MCAT and some tips, this is the video for you. Hi, my name is Supriya and I've recently taken the MCAT and I applied to medical school this year. Fingers crossed that I get in. The MCAT is something I think a lot of pre-meds know about, but we don't actually know the specifics. At least for me, I didn't know it until I started studying. So here's the overview of the MCAT. Number 1, content. There are 4 sections of the MCAT: Chem Phys, CARS, critical analysis and reasoning skills, B&B, biology and biochem, and finally psychology and sociology. Those are the 4 sections. Each section has 95 minutes, an hour and 35 minutes for you to do your test, excluding CARS, which is only 90 minutes. This is the content that each section covers. For Chem Phys, it'll cover Gen Chem 1, Gen Chem 2, Organic 1, Organic 2, and Biochem, and also Physics 1 and Physics 2. Just a little bit of those last ones though. For CARS, it is literally just reading skills. You have to read something they give you. It'll be a humanitarian passage, philosophy. They'll try and give you some boring ones, and then they'll ask you questions about it. There's literally all the answers are within the text. There is no extra material outside that you need. In fact, you should probably just turn your brain off while you're reading that section so you don't have any outside material come in, because they will try to fool you with that. The classes that you'll need for biology and biochem are Bio 1 and Bio 2, but like really a whole lot of Bio 1. So you're gonna need to refresh. If you didn't do so well in that class, or you like forgot everything, you're gonna need to refresh that. And a ton of biochem. Are you seeing a theme with the biochem? Okay, for psychology and sociology, that's pretty standard. Honestly, you could do this whole section without taking any psychology classes. Highly recommended you take at least one though. I'm actually a psychology major and I do feel like that helped, but not like too much, because this section is by far the easiest one. You can just memorize and plow right through. Now, within each section, there are 59 questions, excluding CARS. We're just gonna talk about CARS later. And there's 15 discretes. Discretes are what you take in every single normal test that you've ever taken in your life, basically. The rest are passage-based. So they give you a passage, is basically kind of like a research study, and in fact they're all cited down below, so they all actually do come from sources, and then they ask you questions within the passage that takes your background knowledge as well. So the hardest questions come from knowing everything in the passage, being able to identify graphs, and your outside knowledge, but there's a lot of pseudo-discretes, which means it'll ask you a question and act like it's from the passage, but really it's just outside material. So yeah, there's no breakdown of like how many are pseudo-discretes, otherwise I'd tell you. CARS, by the way, 53 questions, 90 minutes, 9 passages, 10 minutes per passage. All right, the second thing you need to know is scoring, because the scoring is crazy. It goes from 472 to a 528, and the reason they do that is because they want like an equal curve. So 500 is the 50th percentile, and this is not the same as getting a 50%. For the scoring and the admission into medical school, I'll post a little thing right here, but as you can kind of see, it's kind of going up each time. The average applicant MCAT score is a 506.1 for like the previous year, and the average admitted score is a 511.5. But again, those are just averages. I think it's important to know, but obviously you can be like an outlier. All right, so a 506 is the 67th percentile. A 511 is the 82nd percentile. A 514 is the 89th percentile. And so anything above a 515, you're solid. So 515 to 528 is like, that's a whole breed of itself. And at that point, you're kind of like, it's kind of luck on what discretes you get, because you're gonna get things wrong on every single test no matter what, just because the discretes they're just so much content. People have said, and I completely agree, that the MCAT is 2 miles wide, 1 inch deep, which means that it covers, like, I don't know how many classes I said previously, like 10, 12 classes it covers, but it's not so in depth for each one. Like in your physics test, for example, you're gonna get all these like incline passages and you have calculators for one, sine, cosines. That's not what it's gonna be, because you do only have 1.5 hours average for 59 questions. So it's gonna be more like units, and it's something that you need to practice for sure, but it's not that like difficult. All right, so this section of the video is honestly my biggest takeaway for this exam, and that is that there are 4 different fields you kind of need to excel at to be good at this test. If you lack in any one of them, you're not gonna do well on this test. If you excel at any one of them, that doesn't mean you'll do well. For example, I got an A in every single chemistry class I've ever taken. Honestly, I really liked chemistry, but I got an abysmal score on my CP. You can look at my reaction. I'm not gonna talk about it here. Basically, just because you did well in your classes, that's just content. That doesn't mean you're gonna do super well on this test. The first part is content. This is how every single test you've ever taken is. They're discrete questions, you know it or you don't. Or you go through problems in physics and you figure out the answer. You need to know content for this exam. Don't fool yourself into thinking you know it when you don't, especially if it's something like Gen Chem 1 or Bio 1. Just go back and relearn it if you have to. It'll make your life a lot easier. Number 2, the timing of each section. Each section, like I said, is an hour and 30 minutes, approximately 59 questions. Cars is always excluded from this. And for each science passage, you have 8 minutes per passage, and you have to be able to time yourself no matter how tough the passage is or how easy the passage is. Well, if it's easy, you should go quick. But if it's really, really tough, you should just skip questions and keep going. You never want to get hung up on a passage because it'll ruin your entire rest of the section. And easy points that you could have gotten, because each point is worth the same, easy points you could have gotten you won't get because you spent so much time on this really tough passage. That happened to me on my real MCAT for my Chem Phys because I didn't practice it enough, so I didn't deal with that enough. The third part is stamina. This test is literally 7 hours long. You're gonna be in that testing room for like 8 hours. And the actual time of the test is 6 hours and 15 minutes. Which may not sound like a super long time, but I mean, it really is. Especially when you take a lunch break in between and you're like, oh, I'm kind of sleepy now. No, you're not. You have to take a friggin' crazy long test. It's insane. And you have to be able to sustain that extremely intense focus because no section is easy. So you have to sustain it, but the thing is, everyone can do it. You just have to practice doing it. Okay, the fourth thing you have to be good at is learning how the AAMC asks questions. Again, this is not like a normal test. This is not a discrete. You have to know when they ask a question, where in the passage it is, find that section, realize and figure out if you have to know background knowledge or if it's just directly a graph from the passage, and you need to pick the right answer. And the way you do this, the way you do all of this is truly just through practice. This is why a majority, 99% of people cannot study this test in a month. I wouldn't even say 2 months. If I had to give you an honest estimate of what you need 4 months to study for this test. I would say 1.5 months being content, the next 2.5 being practice. Okay, so that was a quick rundown of the MCAT. If you have any questions, please ask them below. If you like this video, like the video. Here's a link to me studying for the MCAT. These are live streams that I did previously. So if you're studying, you can do them too, and you can watch them and you can have like a buddy. I thought that was fun. Or here's a link to all of my score reactions. My next one is coming out July 21st or July 20th. I mean, I get my score on July 20th, so yeah. Okay, fingers crossed that I do okay. All right, and if you subscribe, also like the video because I don't actually know how many subscribers I have. If you have any other suggestions about the MCAT, please leave it below so other people can see. All right, so I've just gone through the MCAT, which is a huge barrier or gateway into medical school. I don't want this to scare anyone because it truly is possible for anyone to do well. I just don't want anyone going into it thinking they're gonna do better than they are and then coming in for a rude awakening. That's not fun, and that's why I just wanted to lay everything out in the open. But I do really wanna make sure everyone understands that you can do well. You just have to put in the effort and you have to have enough time. That's all it is. So I wish you luck.